Jim Murray, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
Yes, I'm happy you're up for it.
Yeah, for sure.
Could you maybe start out telling a little bit about yourself and your musical upbringing?
Yeah, so I was born in County Cork, sort of mid Cork, so kind of in the middle of the county. My mum was from there, and my dad was from Tipperary, and my dad was very musical. My mum and dad lived in England for many years, and then kind of came back and settled in County Cork, and there was always music in the house. Dad had a band as well, so I was the youngest one in the family, and so as long as I can remember, my dad was always sort of playing, and he was always whistling and singing, and there was an accordion in the house. He played the accordion, and there was a piano. So first of all, the piano was the thing that I played. Actually I was only 3, and I was able to just make, maybe Twinkle Twinkle or whatever it was, or some little melodies like that. And then when I was 4, I started playing the accordion, and I played the accordion for years, really, I suppose, all through my childhood. And then I sort of went on to playing with I played in an accordion band for a good few years. When I was about maybe 7 or 8, there was a local accordion band, so I played in that for a good bit. And then when I was probably about 13, I started playing with my dad's band, and that was playing the piano, because he had a Ceilidh band, so it was like a kind of predominantly, I suppose, like a dance music band. People came and danced to all the different types of dances in Ireland. But then there would have been things like weddings as well, and functions, and it was kind of how we made our living.
Nice. And what about your later musical life? You've been touring a lot and playing with a lot of different musicians. Can you tell a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I suppose I started playing the guitar. I suppose I should start there, because when I was maybe 10 or 11, got a guitar after a long time of begging for a guitar. My father said, no, if you get a guitar, you're going to give up the accordion. And I said, no, I won't. And then
what happened then?
I got the guitar and I gave up the accordion.
Right.
So, yeah, I was very lucky in school. My science teacher, Kevin O'Brien is his name. He's still a good friend of mine. He was a great guitar player, and so he got me, he helped me then, because I had a guitar, but he helped me to learn an awful lot of the stuff that formed me, I suppose, as a guitar player, playing all the Beatles, James Taylor, Jim Croce, Simon and Garfunkel, John Denver, all that kind of acoustic guitar music, I suppose.
Yeah.
And so that's what really led me to playing the guitar. And then I suppose, after a number of years, the guitar then was starting to come into Irish music for me, because I set up a band with a couple of friends of mine. And so I was playing the piano predominantly that time with them, and sometimes the guitar for like the songs and things. And then I started kind of doing some guitar on the tunes, and then it was kind of more guitar and less piano. And so that's kind of how I got into the guitar. And then, yeah.
And there might be one or two of the many listeners that don't know who you are, although we assume that most people will definitely know who you are. But just for the ones that maybe not know who you are, who are you touring with mostly, for example? What projects do you have?
Well, at the moment, I am touring quite a lot with Padraig Rinn and Tara Breen, two fantastic musicians from County Clare. I'm also doing and we've actually got a couple of albums that we've made in the last few years. I'm also working a bit with the great banjo player, Jerry O'Connor. Been doing bits with him. Also playing with Dermot Byrne, great accordion player from Donegal, and Breed Harper, brilliant fiddler also from Donegal. I had been, and Sharon Shannon, I've been playing with Sharon for 26 or 7 years now, I think. So still doing some stuff with Sharon, going to Japan soon with Sharon for a tour. And then I've got I play with, actually that band that I mentioned earlier on, I still play with my old school friend Richard Lucy, who's a great accordion player. And actually I'm doing some work as well with a young singer who's asked me to sort of, I suppose kind of hold the band together type thing, where I'm kind of, she's a great young singer called Ciara Breen from Wexford.
Right.
And bits and pieces, and then I'm also just after rehearsing for a network tour next February with 3 great musicians, but actually they've asked me, the network people have asked me not to mention it yet, who they are, because I think they want to announce it later, maybe in November or December. So, but I'm really looking forward to that. We've got a lot of shows in February in Ireland, and one in London and one in Paris.
Yeah.
So lots going on.
Nice. Definitely a lot going on there.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that you're a very experienced musician. You've been making your living from playing for many years. And one of my intentions with this podcast is actually to let's say, give young people an insight into how it is to be a professional musician.
Mm-hmm.
So which skills would you say are important to have apart from just being a really good player?
I suppose obviously you can just tour a lot, but that means you're on the road all the time. And that may be really attractive to you at a certain age, or maybe at any age, I don't know, it depends on the individual. So that's sort of the way it is. Like, I remember back in the day when you could actually make a lot of money from CDs and stuff as well, but obviously not so much now.
No.
So what can you do? I mean, I suppose you can, like, I did a tutorial a number of years ago. You can diversify into that. You can do some teaching. Maybe marry the music with something like therapy. Mm-hmm. I suppose basically I think you need to, you kind of can't have maybe all your eggs in one basket. But I think it's probably more difficult now maybe than it was when I was sort of young.
In which sense do you think?
Yeah, look, it seems that you have to be very active on social media and all that kind of stuff. I suppose the way the music scene has gone, and the bigger Taylor Swifts of the world and all that seem to be kind of eating up all of the money and the attention, and Spotify now and all those things that kind of weren't around when I was younger. Now I know they can be used as well in a really positive way, but I think for an independent artist now to start out, it just seems that there's a lot of competition there, and it's not so much about the music. And I think we spoke about this earlier when we were driving up here, that if you're a really good musician now, it probably doesn't translate to as much as it used to. When the music spoke for itself, you need to kind of have all the rest of the stuff to go with it.
Do you think there is a difference between being an accompanist and a melody player in terms of how hard or easy it is to make money from it? Or not make money from it, but make your living from it?
Yeah, I think it's probably easier to be an accompanist, maybe, because I suppose as the main... No, I'm not sure actually, but I have a feeling maybe being an accompanist is a little easier because you can go across lots of different... Like me as a guitar player, I suppose the guitar is so versatile an instrument. I'm not totally kind of pigeonholed into one thing. So, but I'm not saying that being a melody player you're really pigeonholed into something either. But I suppose I feel like if you're the melody player, you almost have to really work hard to make a name for yourself, maybe as a melody player. Mm-hmm. Whereas as an accompanist, you're accompanying obviously the melody player, and maybe like I've worked with so many different melody players, it's kind of like I suppose you kind of get known by the people you're playing with initially. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally.
So I think maybe being an accompanist, maybe there's just a wider circle of potential for work.
Yeah, so that's something to consider as well. I guess, for people out there.
Well, look, it is. I suppose you play what you play.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. When I grew up, I think I imagined touring life in a different way than what it actually turned out to be in some way. I would say it's a little less rock and roll in some way, at least as a folk musician. It can be rock and roll, I guess, if you want to, but it's also a lot to do with logistics and practical things and getting from A to B and all these things. You've toured a lot all over the world, and if you were to tell the young listeners out there what touring life is, and maybe also what to consider if you want to become a professional musician, what would you say to them? Like, what are the good things and what are the bad things about touring life?
Well, I think the good things, there's lots of great things really. I suppose getting to travel all over the world to see all the different places, I think it actually really opens up your mind. It's like an education you could never get unless you do it, you know. I've made so many great friends all over the world. Just seen so many amazing things, great food. Like I'm going to Japan next month. I'm really looking forward to going back there again because, you know, I love Japanese food. But if I wasn't a touring musician, I probably wouldn't be like that. Do you know what I mean? Yeah, just being able to, you know, go places and, you know, even like practical things, like if you want to go on a holiday or something, you can stay with friends a lot of the time because you've got friends, you know, like you were here, and I've got friends in most different countries. And actually now that my children are getting older and they're going to start traveling, they in turn have many places that they can visit and go because I've already made those friendships through touring.
Yeah.
So yeah, I suppose they're the positives. Then there are the negative parts as well, where you kind of turn it on its head and you're away from home a lot, you know, and you find yourself, you know, living out of a suitcase and different day, different gig, you know, and it can be lonely. It can be challenging as well. I remember finding it challenging different times in my life where you kind of feel a bit disconnected. Yeah. From reality almost, you know. Right, where all of my friends where I grew up, they're all sort of have day jobs, you know. My friends are all, you know, mechanics and engineers, or, you know, and they kind of look at me, you know. Often people, even when I came here, people said, God, like, you're going to Denmark for 10 days. I said, yeah. I said 10 days, 10 different shows, 10 different places. And they were like, will you not be absolutely wrecked, like, when you come home? And I won't be, actually, because I'm kind of used to it. But for some people, they think that's like, it would be really difficult, you know, to do that. So yeah, and of course you're surrounded by a party thing as well, you know. I mean, you could wreck yourself, like. Yeah, you know,
a lot of people, or a lot of musicians or folk musicians are or become alcoholics.
Yeah, but there's always alcohol. Yeah. And it's often free. Yeah. You know. And that, yeah, so you need to be careful around that, I guess. What I have done as well over the years is to take up running. Yeah. You know, and I like running. And it's actually a good way to see new places as well, you know. Yeah. Because you kind of put on the shoes and off you go out from the hotel and you can run through the town or, you know, the countryside, depending where you are. It kind of gives you a nice perspective on places as well, you know. Totally, yeah. But I think, you know, if I was to think of it in a way of the good and the bad, I think certainly that the good outweigh the bad. Yeah. But actually, like, one thing about it, I very quickly figured out when I was young, touring and starting out and moving around so much, it was actually a real positive thing. The first thing I kind of realised was I wanted a house. I wanted a base. So I bought a house at a very young age. Because I wanted to have a home. Yeah. You know, so that actually worked out quite well for me. Right. You know. Nice. Yeah.
And it's interesting because you were saying that you still enjoy touring a lot, even though you've done it so much for so many years, and you have a family of 3 kids and a wife at home and all that.
Big shout out to my oldest girl, Holly, she's 17 today.
Oh yeah.
And I'm celebrating that now because she can officially drive me home from the pub.
That's great. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers to Holly, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll have to sing her happy birthday tonight on the phone.
We will. But even though you've toured so much and you like it, you've also become a psychotherapist.
Yes.
What's the reason for that? Because if you wanted to, you could easily just make your living just from playing.
I could.
I'm sure.
I could.
Yeah.
And I could be away a lot, but actually I think one of the reasons that I became a psychotherapist was actually that I can work from home as well.
Yeah.
You know, I have my own practice in my local town in Clonakilty in West Cork where I live, and I really like to work, you know, and I can go in the morning, do a few hours, come home, maybe have some lunch, go back in, do a couple of hours again. And to be honest with you, I think that feeling came from, one of the feelings of qualifying for something. I lived in New Zealand for a while, about a year actually, because I met my wife there. My wife is Scottish, but she was living in New Zealand at the time, and we went back out to live in New Zealand. And I remember getting there, and I wasn't really qualified to do anything. You know, I was a guitar player, all right, and kind of, I suppose, well known at home and things, but it's not so much over there, and there wasn't that big a scene there, so I didn't have that much work there. When I was over there, right, I developed a tutorial to teach that, and I used the time well, I suppose. Mm-hmm. But I remember thinking, you know, I can't really make a living, you know, and wouldn't it be great if I was qualified to do something where I could actually walk into a job if I wanted to live in another part of the world?
Yeah.
So that kind of stuck with me actually, and I kind of always was interested in psychotherapy, and I had done a year of it about 10 years ago in college, but it was really difficult to do the college thing and the music. And actually at the time I was running a business as well, a furniture business that my mum and dad used to have. They retired, which was kind of one of the reasons we came back from New Zealand, to run the business, because actually running the business meant that I was at home. I wasn't away. I didn't want to be away so much, you know, and I still don't. So like this suits me fine. I'm kind of doing like maybe a week here and a week there now, and that's enough. I probably won't do any longer stuff anymore, because simply I don't really want to. And also with my client work now, you know, I kind of need to be at home, you know, most of the time.
Yeah. So I guess like one of the takeaways here for the kids and the young people out there maybe thinking about becoming a professional musician is, how much do you want to be away from home, or do you want to maybe have a family and be home more, and can you then combine things with being a musician or teach, or, you know? Absolutely.
And I suppose the other thing with hindsight as well is, I went back to college. Actually, I became a psychotherapist only recently, only in the last like year and a half ago I qualified. And actually it was COVID that allowed me to go back and do it. And so when COVID kicked in, I thought, okay, this is my chance. Yeah. And thankfully it worked.
Yeah.
But I did that as a mature, I suppose being a psychotherapist is slightly different, because you need to be kind of mature to do it. Mm-hmm. But I suppose in general, if I would say to the younger people, you know, maybe get a qualification now while you can and while you're young, and maybe while you're not married or you don't have dependents on you, so you can actually, you've got more time to do it.
Great advice.
I kind of feel like I don't want to put people off being musicians either, but it's just like, I think maybe just doing the sessions and the gigs and stuff, I think it is good. I have to say, I do think it would be good to have something else. Yeah. You know.
Have you learned anything from getting a degree in psychotherapy that you benefit from when playing music? Maybe something like, people who struggle with nerves, for example.
I have found that, especially for teaching, I think that it's been good, because it really helps you to start to see it maybe from the other person's perspective. So I would say, to them, this is kind of about you and how you learn, and what you want from it. It's not so much what I think you should learn or how I think you should play. or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, and then I think, you know, the music as well, like being the psychotherapist and the music, they both kind of, so it makes me probably a better psychotherapist maybe, and maybe a better musician, because they both lend sort of good things to each other, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
You said about nerves on stage.
Yeah, do you have any good advice? Because like I've struggled with nerves, I still do sometimes, and I know there's a lot of people out there who struggle with that. Do you have any, is that something that you work with as a psychotherapist, or?
Yeah, I can. Like, I suppose nerves, when you say nerves, really we're talking about anxiety.
Well, stage anxiety, or which, you know, comes in different stages, of course.
Yeah.
Some people really suffer from really bad anxiety, and some people are just a little bit nervous, and you know.
Yeah, but it is, I suppose, nerves really is anxiety, isn't it?
Well,
that's what I would say. Yeah. So it's like, how bad is the anxiety, or the nerves, as you call it, about going on stage? I think really you're kind of then going more into the psychotherapy side of things, because it's like, you know, what's going on? Why are you feeling like that? You know.
Right.
And look, there's a certain element to that is maybe just natural, where you kind of feel that you're very much in the spotlight or something, and self-conscious and things like that. We all are a bit like that maybe. But if it's really bad, it's probably something maybe deeper.
Yeah.
You know, maybe something around self-belief, or maybe catastrophization, or, you know, what ultimately could be the worst thing that could happen, you know. I might ask you, so like, what's the worst thing that you think could happen you if you go out on the stage?
Yeah.
And then if you maybe go through that and say, and bring it to the end, you know, ask someone, well, what's the worst thing? Like, what's going to happen? And then they might go, well, actually, I don't know. Or maybe I forget the words. And okay, so if you forget the words, what'll happen? Will everybody laugh, or will it be okay? And then sometimes you can kind of help that way, maybe, you know. So because sometimes it's in someone's head that something really disastrous is going to happen, but they're actually not sure what it is.
Yeah.
Or if it's actually kind of, if it's really true at all, you know.
So it's about imagining the situation, and maybe also imagine what would it be like if I made a really big mess up or mistake.
Yeah.
And then is it as bad as I would imagine, you know?
Yeah.
Or
Yeah. Because sometimes I think we can, you know, in lots of areas of life, we can imagine things to be a lot worse than they actually are in reality, or that they would be in reality, you know?
Yeah. Yeah, because I've also seen, like, I've messed up, you know, sometimes. Usually it's like smaller mistakes or something like that people might not even hear. And then every now and then, you know, you do a big mess up. Yeah. And I've also seen other musicians do that. And, you know, when I see that, I'm like, if I'm in the audience, I'm like cheering for them, you know. It's not like you're, what happened there? But
exactly,
you're like, go on, man, you can do it. Yes. And so I feel like people send a lot of, let's say, love towards the musician.
Yeah, because it's human, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
And I suppose you're seen to be vulnerable.
Yeah. I think that's actually something that people, don't get me wrong here, I wouldn't say like, but if you see, I've seen some, like, some of my heroes mess up on stage as well. And it actually kind of made me feel, okay, if they can do it, it's also okay if I mess up sometimes, you know.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, that idea as well, I think maybe kind of reminds me there of going into things around perfectionism for people. Sometimes there's a thing around perfectionism. Yeah. And it has to be perfect. This idea of being good enough can be very difficult for some people, you know. Even when I say that to some people about good enough, it's almost uncomfortable for them, you know. It's like, but yeah, like you say, I think it's quite endearing actually to see that people are, you know, not perfect. And as you say, I think it actually almost adds maybe to the authenticity of it, you know. Yeah. And people certainly are kinder than they are cruel, I think, you know. Yeah. People would be very supportive normally, and you'd often see there, you know, if someone starts a song and it goes wrong or something, and they say, oh, you know, I'll start it again, they often get a cheer or a applause, or maybe when they finish the song for the second time, they get a great applause. It's like, well done, you got through it, you know. Exactly. It's not like people are going to get up and leave or something.
No.
Whereas maybe in the mind of the performer, maybe they almost will or something, you know.
Yeah, you feel like a failure or something like that. Yeah. So what you're saying is also that it's actually hard to say anything in general because you kind of have to look at the individual.
Yes.
Yeah. You and I are currently on tour with Mike McGoldrick, Daisy Donnelly, and Andreas Tophoy. And leading up to this tour, we did an album together, a limited edition thing that we sell at the concerts. So you can't find it out there. You have to go to the concerts.
Yeah.
But in this process, that's the reason why I mention it, is that, you know, I got to mix the album with a guy here where I live. And, you know, when you mix an album, you solo all the instruments to work on each individual instrument.
Yeah.
And when we did that with your guitar, I could really hear all the little details that you do. You do so many runs and bass lines and stuff like that, which is one of the things that I really like about you playing. And I knew you did it before, like mixing this CD, but it just really highlighted how much you actually do it.
Okay.
Just holding the guitar and listening to it. So I was just thinking, how did you kind of invent this style? Because I haven't heard that many guitarists do it, at least not as much as you do.
Yeah.
And it's a really nice
thank
style.
You. Well, thank you.
In my opinion, yeah.
I suppose, as I mentioned earlier, I came from a background of playing the piano. And I still think very much in terms of a bass line. So if I hear a melody, I really want to hear where the bass line lands. That's almost, once I know the melody, so I have to know the melody. And again, I was lucky enough to have, as I said, played the accordion for years, so I understood the melodies, like, you know, and I start to still do intimately. I believe you have to know the melody intimately to accompany it. So I had that, and then by playing the piano as well, this idea that, you know, if you listen to accompaniment on the piano, say, or a bass player, you really have to commit to a bass note. Okay, so it's like if the rhythm is like whatever, like it's like doom 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 da do 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 do, whatever it is, you know, so that you're actually committing to a bass note all of the time. It's not like you're kind of playing the guitar and you're just washing over stuff, you know, and you're kind of doing open chords and it's all a bit wishy-washy. It's actually, no, you're nailing. It's like you're nailing your colours to the mast, you know, and it's like, okay, this is what it is. Because if you're a piano player and you've got your left hand here and your right hand here, what's your left hand doing all the time? It has to commit to where the bass is, you know. Yeah. Or if you're playing the bass as well, it's like you can't really get it wrong. So I always think in those terms. What is the bass note through, like, we'll say, each beat of the melody? So like if there's, you know, 3 notes within the beat or something, well, what do those 3 notes represent in a bass note or a chordal sort of structure, if you know what I mean? Yeah. So what I get is the very skeletal sort of bass part, the chords in the middle, I see it as, and then the rhythm. So there's 3 very active things happening. And once you can get the skeleton of the bass, then you can start to join those notes together to make it more interesting, and maybe you can change them and weave in and out through them. But at the very core of the tune, there is a very honest, I suppose, and corrective, maybe for the want of a better word, bass line. And if there are any young or just guitar players out there who would like to kind of learn your style, if maybe they are used to get, you know, don't get me wrong, but just playing the chords and they don't really do the bass lines and all that, what would your advice be to, how do you learn that? Do you need to get into theory, or can you just use your ear? Or I think you can use your ear. I actually was teaching a man last week, and he's a really good guitar player. He wasn't too familiar with many Irish tunes, so I asked him, did he know the Camptown Races? You know the Camptown Races? Da 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 dee dee da 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 dee da. So I said to him, I said, can you just play the bass string? I said, I just want you to play the bass string for that. And he actually found it really difficult.
Okay.
And then by the time he finished it, he thought, all right. He said, now I really get it. He said, I never thought of it like that before. And that's the approach. Do you understand what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah. And he was actually trying to do all sorts of really complicated things, but actually it was a very simple baseline. And that's, I think, how you do it. But you can only do it if you know the melody.
Yeah.
Actually I was teaching a guy one time, and I said, look, you really need to know the melodies. And he was saying, yeah, okay. And I had taught him a couple of times, and then I didn't see him anymore. And I thought, I wonder, did he just get sick of it or something? And then after about 2 years, he reached out to me, and I said, oh, where were you? He said, I was learning the tunes.
Yeah.
So good.
Yeah, that's good. Now, most people that I know of who play guitar and folk music, they use steel strings, but you use nylon strings.
Yes.
And I don't know that many people who use nylon strings apart from you, Tim Eady and Steve Cooney, for example. But it sounds really great with the nylon strings.
Thank you, yeah. I originally heard Steve playing nylon strings, and it wasn't so much, well, it probably was the nylon string, but it was actually the way he was playing it. Again, it was very much my language. When I heard him, I thought, my God, that's great. I hadn't ever heard someone play the guitar like that before, because it was very much like a piano, like I spoke about earlier on. And Steve, I remember Steve saying afterwards that he would have been influenced in his accompaniment actually by Charlie Lennon's a piano playing. And again, very much like I was saying earlier, that there is a bass line, and I remember hearing Steve play these really sympathetic and lovely bass lines to, at the time it was with Seamus Begley, and it worked so well. And I suppose in the nylon as well, it's kind of got more of a percussiveness to it, so you can probably hit it that little bit harder without it kind of sort of sounding trashy or something. You know what I mean? But yeah, and then I kind of just played the nylon, and then I started using kind of the tuning I use now, which is double drop D. I just kind of got into that myself, I suppose. And then just with that tuning that I use, so it's D on the top and D on the bottom, and the 4 middle strings are standard. I just have spent years developing voicings and ideas around that, and listening to all sorts of music, I think, has just filtered down through me to kind of end up with where it is now,
Yeah, because I do think that you have a very, let's say, unique or personal playing style.
Yeah,
which is, that's always an amazing thing, I think.
Yeah. It probably comes with age too, I think when you're younger, you emulate your heroes a bit, and you kind of perfect, or you try to maybe perfect that kind of thing, and then you do that across a lot of things maybe, and then you kind of come away from it a bit, and then you reimagine it maybe yourself a bit more. And then I find as I get older, I think I'm playing almost different again. Do
you keep developing your style, or?
Yeah, it seems to keep developing, even though I'm not actively trying to develop it.
But it just happens.
It seems to happen, yeah. It seems to happen, and maybe it's just from. I'm sure that most of the stuff that I'm playing is coming from somewhere else. It's kind of coming in and filtering down through me, and like I know, by listening to all that Beatles stuff, as I mentioned earlier on, and Jim Croce, and kind of some of the colours and the chords and the ideas. Also, another great influence on me was Ian Carr, who we spoke about earlier on, because I know you did a podcast with Karen, and I remember hearing their album when I was it must be 30 years ago, so maybe I was 17, 18, and there was this shop in Cork called The Living Tradition. A good friend of mine, Tony O'Flaherty, had the shop at the time, and I used to go in there, when I was in Cork City, to start to go in, and at the time you'd get the new albums or see what was out. And I went in that day, and there was this music playing, and it just stopped me in my tracks, and I was like, what's that? And he said, that's a new CD from 2 people called Karen Tweed and Ian Carr. And that actually, when I heard that, it really changed my ideas as well of what could be possible with accompanying music, Irish music, any kind of music, I suppose. Both of them just so inspiring.
Yeah, Karen is one of my big heroes as well. Speaking of heroes, have you got any other heroes than the ones you mentioned there? Because you mentioned a lot of people who actually don't play folk music apart from Ian.
Yes.
Is that where you got most of your inspiration from?
Well, I mentioned Steve Cooney.
Oh yeah, Steve Cooney as well, yeah.
That was more on the Irish side of stuff, I suppose. But growing up, to be honest with you, I didn't really listen to traditional music at all. My dad, as I said, was young Cayley bands and stuff, and I kind of knew that music, but I never grew up like going to the Flas or like, like most kind of Irish musicians I know. I wasn't listening to, the Chieftains. I wasn't listening to the Botty Band. I wasn't listening to Day Dannon. I wasn't listening to Moving Hearts. I wasn't listening to any of it. I was listening to Queen.
Yeah.
And I was listening to Michael Jackson, and I was, and that was really my music.
Yeah.
And then, I suppose Django Reinhardt, all that kind of stuff. And to this day, I suppose I, don't listen a lot to trad, to be honest with you, which is maybe why my approach is kind of different.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of great musicians saying that, actually. Karen said that as well, that she listened a lot to, people who played different genres and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And she got inspiration from that.
I'm not surprised, because like when you listen to Karen, it's so creative and, different. And she is obviously a genius, but you'd almost think, okay, all of that must come from other places as well, from listening to other kinds of music. And I suppose we talked earlier on as well about what are the benefits of touring. I would have done lots of festivals all over the world where you get amazing opportunities to play with different bands from, remember I grew up listening to the Gypsy Kings, for instance, and about 3 years ago I was playing with them in Australia. I never thought, when I say playing with them, no, we were playing like not on the stage together, but like having a session outside. And like I thought, God, when I was like 10 or 12 listening to the Gypsy Kings every night, did I ever think I'd be playing with them in Australia,
Yeah.
But again, for instance, the Gypsy Kings, some beautiful colours and ideas that maybe some of the things I do on our gig, maybe there's a throwback to some of the Gypsy Kings, you see?
Okay.
Yeah, and maybe I don't even know it.
All right. So people might hear some gypsy jazz tonight.
That's it, yeah.
Great. You've also been teaching a lot. What do you think is a great teacher?
I think, as I kind of maybe said earlier on as well, the idea that you are... Well, look, there's a couple of things to it, I suppose. Look, you have to show them the basics. I've also found over the years that sometimes as a teacher we can sort of assume that the student knows more, or that it's as easy for the student, or somehow that it's easy enough for the student to understand what we're doing because we're so used to doing it. But in fact, it can be actually very confusing. So actually bringing it back to basics and trying to start, like for instance, if I'm teaching someone, I try to teach them, if they're interested in the tuning I use, I'd show them all the basics around that, maybe 5 or 10 basic rudimentary type of moves. But then it's very much about getting them to apply it, to be able to apply it correctly to a melody. And that's actually probably the hardest bit. So if you get all this stuff under your fingers and you can do it all, but then how do you apply it? And I suppose that's the kind of trick I find in teaching sometimes. It's a bit like the Camptown races thing, you kind of try to get the student to apply it to what they know, and so that it actually makes sense for them.
Yeah.
And also to kind of teach in a way that works for the student. So everybody's different.
Yeah, totally.
And so you can't assume that, what works for you will work for someone tomorrow. So again, I think it kind of goes into the psychotherapy thing too, listening, being kind of empathetic, trying to figure out what works for them.
Yeah.
I can't even read or write music myself, so, I know what it would be maybe to be easily intimidated, and I can still feel like that in situations where I may be in with an orchestra or, everybody's reading sheet music and I'm like, I don't have anything,
Yeah.
So I think there's a lot of that too about, the student, because sometimes I'd say to the student, how are you doing? And sometimes they'd actually say, I'm actually quite nervous.
Yeah.
And I'd say, okay, that's all right. And look, and then maybe working on that, because if you're nervous, you can't learn.
Yeah.
you know.
That's true.
So trying to make the student feel okay as well, and
Yeah.
that there's no expectation either. You don't have to get it right now. And in fact, when I'm teaching, what I say is, look, you don't have to get it right now. All I want you to get is the idea.
Yeah.
And if you can clearly understand what I'm telling you and what I'm trying to start to show you, I don't mind if you can't do it at all now, and don't be any way embarrassed, or, you know, as long as maybe you can do it in the next week, 2 weeks, a month, 2 months, it's up to you when you bring it home. But just as long as you understand fundamentally what I'm showing you, and if you don't, ask me again, no problem.
Yeah, exactly. I also, like, if some of my students are a bit nervous, I like to say to them that, you know, I see this as a kind of a place that we experiment with things as well. And when you experiment with things to maybe discover new things, or you sometimes, you know, you go down a wrong path, or, you know, you are going to make mistakes, because that's just part of learning.
Yes, we learn from our mistakes.
Yeah, exactly.
Hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
So I think it is really important that, you know, you give space for that as well, for them to feel. So I totally agree about that.
I suppose you think about it, like, Rune. I mean, we all remember, I think, the good teachers, you know.
Yeah.
And we also remember the bad ones.
Oh yeah.
You know, and so there's something about it, isn't there, about trying to be the good teacher, or, you know.
Yeah. Great. So just to finish off, is there any of your projects that people out there have to look out for now and keep an eye on?
Yes, actually. I'm just in the process of doing a new tutorial, which will be, I think it'll be really good. And I don't mean it's going to be really good because of me, but because of the technologies that's there now, and how I'm going to set it up. Because I do find that when I'm teaching, you know, I'm often teaching the same thing to a different person. And, you know, the technology that I'll be using actually will let people see exactly what I am doing.
Yeah.
And they'll be able to slow it down and maybe repeat it, and it'll be in staff notation. So I'm really looking forward to doing that. I have got the equipment to do it and everything. It's just I need the time to do it now. But I'm hoping to definitely get started, you know, over the winter and get the content down. And I'm really looking forward to that, actually. To getting into that project. And I think it'll be really useful for people to, you know, to be able to learn actually how to accompany Irish music.
Yeah. Fantastic. And where can they find your...
It'll be, well, I have Jim Murray Music is my website, .ie. And so, yeah, just keep an eye on Jim Murray Music. All the stuff is up there. And actually, as I mentioned earlier, there was a thing I did years ago, a tutorial as well, learn Irish guitar. So people can access that as well. There's actually lots of free stuff on there as well if people are interested, you know. You don't even have to pay for it. And then there's also a small fee, I think, for Patreon at the moment if people would like to do that. But as I say, I think the new project that I'm going to do, I'm really excited about that.
Fantastic. And I'll say I'll really recommend it then, because I think you're a fantastic guitar player, and it's really great playing with you as a melody player as well.
Well, you too, yeah.
So thanks. So I'd say go and check it out, because it's really great.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rune, and thanks for having me.
Thanks so much for guesting the podcast.
Yeah,
it was
great
great
to be
speaking
here.
to you.
I'm looking forward to the rest of the tour.
Me too. Yeah. Thanks, man.
Thanks.
Okay. Psychotherapy. It's a hard word to pronounce. Psycho.
It is psycho.
Psychotherapy.
Yeah.
Have you learned anything from your degree in psychotherapy?
Yeah, that wasn't too natural now.
Psychotherapy.
Psychotherapy.
Have you learned anything? Take 17. Have you learned anything?
Here we go.
Let me just give it one more try.
Okay.
Then we might go with that. Have you learned anything in life at all? Okay.
What is the question? Have you learned anything?
Have you learned? It is if you have learned anything in psych. It's your language, so I'm just trying to use it.
Really? Oh, God. to wipe away the tears. For
Yeah.
a second.